Good afternoon. You are about to see a play called Good Night, Good Night. Once there were three little dragons. They lived in a dark cave. The cave was in a dense forest. The forest was in a faraway kingdom. The poor little dragons were very lonely in their deep, dark cave. In the kingdom, there was a good knight. Every night he kept watch. He watched from a crumbly, tumbly tower. It was on top of a very tall wall. One night, the good knight was on his watch. He heard a very large and very loud roar. So the good knight left the crumbly, tumbly tower. He climbed down the very tall wall. He jumped on his horse. He galloped through the king's forest. He came to the deep, dark cave. Inside, he saw the first little dragon.
What's this? Methinks it is a dragon.
And he drew his shimmering, glittering sword. The dragon had on his jammies. He was all ready for bed.
Oh, good, you have come. Could you bring me a drink of water, please? Then I can go to sleep.
The good knight did not know what to think, but he was a good knight, so he got a drink of water. He gave it to the dragon. Then he tucked him into bed.
Good night, good dragon. Sleep well, sleep tight.
Then he galloped away. The good knight ran back through the king's forest. He got off his horse, thud. He climbed up the very tall walls of the crumbly, tumbly tower. There he stood on watch. He stood on watch for 5 minutes. Then he heard another very large, very loud roar. He left the crumbly, tumbly tower. He climbed down the very tall wall. He jumped down his horse.
Away!
He galloped through the king's forest. He came to the deep, dark cave. The second dragon was in her duty. She was all ready for bed.
Oh, good, you have come. Could you read me a story, please? Then I can go to sleep.
The good knight did not know what to think, but he was a good knight, so he read the dragon a story, then he tucked her into bed. He got the first dragon another drink of water, then he tucked him into bed.
Good night, good dragons. Sleep well, sleep tight.
Then he galloped away. The good knight went back to the king's forest. He got off his horse, thud. He climbed up the very tall walls of the crumbly, tumbly tower. There he stood on watch. He stood on watch for 2 minutes. Then he heard another very large, very loud roar. He left the crumbly, tumbly tower. He climbed down the very tall wall. He jumped on his horse.
Away!
He galloped through the king's forest. He came to the deep, dark cave. The little dragon had on his jammies. He was all ready for bed.
Oh, good, you have come. Can you please sing me a lullaby, please? Then I can go to sleep. And could you read me another story? And could you get me another drink of water?
The good knight did not know what to think, but he was a good knight, so he sang the dragon a lullaby. Then he tucked him into bed. He read the second dragon another story, then he tucked her into bed. He got the first dragon another drink of water, then he tucked him into bed.
good dragons. Sleep well, sleep tight.
Then he galloped away. The good knight went back through the king's forest. He got off his horse, thud. He climbed up the very tall walls of the crumbling of the tower. There he stood and watched. He stood and watched for 1 minute. Then he heard the largest, loudest roar of all.
This is too much.
He left the crumbling, tumbling tower. He climbed down the very tall wall. He jumped down his horse.
Away!
He galloped through the king's forest. He came to the deep, dark cave.
Oh, good. You have come. Can you please?
Let me guess. Another drink of water?
No.
Another drink of water?
No.
Another story?
No.
Another song?
No.
Then what do you want?
We're afraid of the deep, dark forest. Can you get us a nightlight to help us sleep?
But he was a good knight, so he helped the dragons create a nightlight made of flames.
This is going too far.
But he was a good knight, so he helped the dragons create a nightlight made of flames.
Good night, good dragons. Sleep well, sleep tight.
Good night, good night.
And with that, the good knight fell asleep right there in the cave with the 3 little dragons. They felt safe at last.